So apparently some casters to come as well. We love Zanzra. It's great hearing from him. Hapgood 1, Hapgood 2, here to bring you some sizzling sibling synergy straight to your screens, wherever you may be. I can come up with some other S words, but we'll leave them for now.
And, you know, nothing special for Zanzra. Special for us, of course.
Of course.
To come back to the LEC stage. And special to see these two teams face off. Now, of course, we were just kind of jumped to here, but we do have a little bit of admin to get through
we
first.
do. Specifically, Hex Flash has been administratively disabled for today's games due to a bug which results in instantaneous respawning. Maybe saw it in the LCK earlier. As a result, it's just been taken off the board for today.
So we're not going to spend too much time talking about this. No, it's happened. Just have to deal with it now and get on with these games.
Indeed.
It will, of course, affect all of the games happening today and this week. First game of the day, though. just saw the SOT from, with that video, rather, interview from Zanzra. We have Astralis versus Misfits. A huge game, a leapfrog game in the standings. This one is going to be crazy.
Of course, as it stands, Misfits are just ahead of them in the standings at 7 and 6, but Astralis are just behind at 6 and 7, with only 2 games between what effectively is 2nd and 8th. There's so much to go for here, and Astralis have the head-to-head right now, so if they win this, they do, as you say, leapfrog in the standings, which would be huge, with only 5 games left to play in the split.
So, game behind, but have the game over them. They'd have that 2-0 if they win this game, so if they end on the same games, things get very, very spooky after that point. But to set the tone, let's get into the music, get into the champion select.
Oh, yes! Always lovely to hear the crowd going wild first thing on the LEC day. Just heading into draft here and preparing ourselves, warming up alongside the crowd to see what we have in store for us, of course, heading into 12-14 as well. So some potential changes in how this draft will work out.
So, yeah, a lot of things to recap. We'll probably get onto them a little bit more in-game, but, of course, expect some of the power picks we saw before. We have that Gwen, we have Sivir, a number of high-priority picks. But of course, some of our picks have been hit fairly heavily. Now, a champion which both of these top laners have played, Relevant has played it more, Vizicsacsi, is that Gnar. Gnar was hit quite a lot in 12-14 in terms of that mini Gnar. It's more able to be taken down at that point, so if you're going to pick lane counters, maybe it is less blind pickable. I really want to see how various teams respond to that and how you can safely blind pick top laners in this matter.
Absolutely. Still going through a few of those bans. Nothing super surprising right now. A lot of these picks have been pretty common across most regions as it stands. And the Ahri out away from Dajor, one of those relatively safe playmaking mid laners. I know it's a disappointment to you.
A little bit, but plenty of high agency carries for both of these headliners. I think particularly Vetheo has been going back to some more tried and true assassin-like picks. He did pick out the Silas a few times and looked very impressive on it. Of course, the Akali as well came back a little bit. But, even though we've had so much of it on the last couple of patches, the Poppy is still going to be such high priority. I really think Poppy is this kind of champion where people kind of fooled themselves in this mind game of going, ooh, but we need to pick it into dashes. I genuinely think Poppy is so strong right now. You can just pick it and just say, I don't care if you got dashes. It's the best champion on the patch, according to some.
Absolutely. Xerxe hovering a Jarvan here, of course, not locked in as yet, but another one of those potential playmaking, early ganking junglers does instead decide to go towards Viego. And with how Xerxe was playing last week in particular, happy to see him on something with a little bit of carry agency.
Yeah, I think the Viego really fits a lot of what Xerxe wants to do, because it allows you to play through a lot of your lanes, because you're able to brawl early. If you have strong early lanes, it allows you to join up with them very, very early. But it gives you that ability to get up in the face of these matchups like the Poppy too, if you meet them on the Rift. Thing is, though, when you're playing against something like a Taliyah, which is just locked in, this is a champion which has been popping up an awful lot in the last patch or two. It just gives you this unparalleled mid lane shove. We saw that actually a lot from Ahri earlier in the season. Of course, that's banned away, but Taliyah is one of these very non-interactive champions in the first 3 levels. You push in that wave, you get to stabilize the map very, very well, and I love it paired with the Sivir. Now, I actually think we saw this a little bit in LPL earlier today. What the Sivir does is give it gives you this huge consistent damage, and then when you're playing around the Taliyah E, you just get to always put out that damage. You're fairly safe on your own nowadays, but that Unraveled Earth is an effective extra frontlining tool to use.
Yeah. But a brief fun fact about Sivir as well. In the last 24 hours, she has 3 pentakills one in the LJL.
That's a lot of pentakills.
One, of course, in the LFL, knocking out Carmine Call from players out of EU Masters, and then one for Jackie Love over in the LPL. And it broke the longest League of Legends loss streak of all time, 0-39 for V3 Esports. Finally won a game this morning with this champion. Sivir is everywhere
So
right
what
now.
I'm hearing is Sivir is just a very strong champion, and if you're talking about breaking loss streaks and being present in these big games, it's just one of these ones which you expect to pop off. And when we've seen it reach that late game, it has just chunked out damage. And what that means for both these teams is that we're probably looking towards those team fights. No surprise when you're looking at Astralis, no surprise when you're looking at Misfits either. I do think that these two teams are going to be butting heads in terms of those team fighting potentials. And what better way to really judge the better of these two teams on the day than going strength versus strength to potentially determine who is going to leapfrog the other one and keep themselves in the playoffs race.
So many standings implications for this last few days and weeks of games. Very tight standings, as we said. So many of these games today as well are against direct standings rivals.
Yes.
One game apart for these two teams in particular right now. And you see exactly what these last few picks will be. Astralis banning away a few potentially dangerous side laning options in the Akali and the Jax. Some of those more interesting supports away on the other side by Misfits Gaming.
It doesn't really surprise me to see some of those Gnar counters, quote-unquote, kind of banned away. Particularly, as we said, it is 12-14. Mini Gnar's had a couple of hits to their base HP. Ooh. And going straight down to the other side of the map, you've got the Gnar who's still trying to be plugged in as this safe blind pickable top laner that allows you to throw resources bot lane if you think Gnar's going to be safe, and a Draven is a champion that thrives off of that attention.
Does indeed. Have to see what the support options are here with it, because Sivir is great if you can survive the lane and keep the shove up. Draven likes to, you know, not let that happen.
Very true. So we are probably looking for something that, of course, can start putting some kill threats on. Sejuani is going to be another frontliner. I'm actually really liking the safety that Misfits now have coming into the late game, because this Sivir is going to do all of your damage for you. You just need to make sure that there is a Poppy W one side, a Taliyah E the other, and a Sejuani somewhere in the mix, and Sivir can just put out the damage for you. Question is now, Astralis, what can you do with your last pick? I mean, we're going to go see a support traded here, and support counter matchup going to go towards Astralis, but it needs to be backline access. It needs to be something that can reach that Sivir, because I'm seriously worried for Astralis if they can't reach that Sivir.
Absolutely, and Kobbe on this Draven. There's a lot of ways to kind of roam down and punish him right now. JeongHoon's Pyke being hovered. We saw the miracles he pulled on us before. The crowd are excited. It's a hover, guys. Wait for it.
We saw this combo earlier. We saw this combo in the LCK, I believe, and no, sorry, it was the LPL.
Okay.
And but this duo is really good at just looking at you level 1, dead in the eyes, and
It's locked in.
Throws out the flag and says, "Come pick it up." Gauntlet's been thrown. 2v2. Spicy from Astralis.
Oh yeah, it is. And on the other side, you've got the Taliyah and the Poppy, who just would love to go down and make sure that doesn't happen. So all eyes on bot lane. Surprise, surprise.
Of course, coming into 12-14, we knew there was likely going to be a more bot lane focus. We've been seeing it from a couple of teams in the LEC, particularly, I think, actually SK were looking very much at looking towards bot lane, picking kill lanes and throwing a lot of resources down there. That was last patch. On this new patch, dragons are more valuable. We'll get into that when we get into game, folks. But when you have this ability to win lane early and then get towards those neutral objectives, which gives you more value now, playing towards bot lane has that much more value.
Time to see whether that value pays off, of course. If Sivir gets out into the mid game for free, things get very scary. If that Draven, that Pyke get rolling, the double cash-ins, man, that gold is starting to start getting extreme as we hover over the crowd. They're getting ready to start clapping away.
There we go. Hype it up. It's a hype matchup. It's got stakes. See how it falls down on the Rift.
Welcome indeed, everybody here in the studio and wherever you're watching from home or otherwise. The Rift is here. We know exactly how important this game will be. And honestly, for both of these teams as well, this is, in some ways, Misfits' last hurrah. We know about the Heretics deal and them coming through and the change that have come through with Zanzibar. Astralis, on the other side, ever since rebranding to Astralis, have never made playoffs as an organization. Both of these squads would love, love, love to make sure they get into playoffs for such pride reasons, such, you know, big reasons in terms of what they want to succeed for these organizations.
Emotive reasons, right?
Exactly.
It's very compelling to listen to, and yeah, no, I think you can really see how close it is. Really no surprise in that one, but it does have this extra kind of degree of stress on top of that a little bit. I'm sure these players are sat at their PCs understanding what this game means. And of course, we do have a lot of games left to play. It does feel sometimes like it comes down to these individual moments to kind of give you a larger scenario, though, because each team has 5 games left. It feels like a small amount when you look down to these one games, like, oh, the series is, the split is won and lost here, you're going to get into playoffs or not. Overall, in total scenarios, there are 33.6 million remaining. I know a lot of people look at these and go, well, if they win this, doesn't that mean we can start getting out the foldy sheets? If you got a foldy sheet out right now, it would be 1.34 million pages in length. Now,
that's quite a lot of folding.
The printer backstage actually ran out of paper. Even if it was full, I would need to do that like a couple of 100 times. But it just shows how you can focus on these individual games, and yes, they feel very... very big, very momentous. There is a lot to be decided in the last few games of the split. And do we get to pull out that line, every game counts just yet?
You begin to wonder. You're getting towards that point in time indeed. And while we can't do a foldy sheet quite yet, we can certainly still realize there's so much to work with. And the point is, playoffs are still wide open. We've seen exactly how close the standings are. Only 5 games to play, lots to happen as a heel burnt from Neon early as Kobbe and JeongHoon just trading aggressively down there.
Yeah, and of course we can see as well, if you look over to where those junglers are pathing, they're all pathing towards bot side. Everyone's heading towards that. This is something, and again, we've seen a lot of our players going to, a lot of our teams going towards this bot side focus. Everyone knows bot lane is where the flip's going to happen.
There'll be a smite fight for this one. It's won by Xerxe. Xantra does have a steadfast presence, so we'll get out without too much danger, but Xerxe wins the early invade, and this is a jungler who had a phenomenal last week on paper. Xerxe had an incredible week 6.
He did, and I think Xerxe has been this kind of player who has typically played through the lanes, been the person to kind of be this scaffolding for Astralis to make sure they can get through to the team fights. Took matters into his own hands a little bit more in that last week. Not to say that Xantra didn't have impact on his own, doesn't necessarily show in those stats there, but we saw in that interview just beforehand, he's brought a bit of life to the atmosphere of a team which did struggle for a lot of this split. This jungle matchup is going to be important, and the first first strike goes to Xerxe, who gets ahead in the individual fight.
Exactly, and you saw the stats there on paper, Xerxe 100% kill participation, doing so well, but on audio was how we were phrasing this. Xantra, such a big sort of intangible factor for this squad. As more trading happens in the bot side, Mersa taken very low, has to flash out. Kobbe and JeongHoon making this lane very difficult.
And you know why they can do this? One, yes, they win the wave trading early on. They get to stack it up, push it in, use the threat of that all in. But the other thing they do is they win that jungle matchup. And that means that bot lane feel even more empowered to go down towards and keep pushing in. Misfits though, they flip up the script. They go top side. Can Chachi get out?
Gonna make this happen. Vizicsacsi is ignited, charged away from First Blood. Over to Irrelevant. Anything but.
Hey, well, what's the cross map? Xerxe's now sat down towards bot side again. We said this is where Astralis really wanted to put their resources down towards. It is a kill onto Chachi. It is a kill. Of course, Irrelevant picks that one up. But the question is actually, how much is this actually worth? You're still down 20 CS in the 2v2. You're being forced off of waves. You're being forced into a bad situation.
Here we go. They're managing to get the ignite down. Mersa looking to be sacrificed to Kobbe. The glorious execution needs one more attack. But Xerxe is the one that picks it up.
Again, while you have like the eye candy on top side, I think it is the right decision for Xantra to just pick up the early option there towards top side. You are still in a very bad spot down towards this bot lane. I'm actually a little bit worried now for Misfits in terms of actually what can you do to bail out this Sivir. We were talking so much about, oh, it's Sivir, she's back, she's scaled, she's got 3 pentakills, ended the world record streak for losses. It's a champion which is really getting crazy value across the world. But if it's behind like this, you do not feel particularly comfortable with it.
So pretty good weeks from both of these squads last week, but Astralis, again, doing pretty well to get ahead a little bit early in this bot side and make sure that Kobbe and JeongHoon are getting to be very aggressive and effective. 100% first turret rate last week. Massive increase in the goal difference, especially considering their early games were pretty weak in the preceding weeks.
So, and again, we can see a kind of continuation of this here. Very confident about the way they're playing. I think what I've been really impressed with this early game from Astralis is the fact that it's very obvious where they wanted to put their resources. and they played towards it. They were very disciplined about the way to do it, and they were very, very active. They're now starting to remove this Pyke from the lane. This is the second phase of it. This Pyke starts to roam in, and you start getting worried.
Irrelevant has had the passive knocked off, but does get to walk away. Just a bit of a trading ultimate there, wondering whether there might be a little bit more of an angle, but they get out of it for now.
But the reason why this is really good, right, because you can look down to where this wave is. Like, that Draven isn't halfway up the lane. That Draven is very safe under their tower, and that means that, of course, this Pyke can go walkabout. Draven isn't losing farm. You get to affect the rest of the map. Astralis have clued up their waves at the right point in time, and the hook just about misses.
That is a Teemo
again,
off.
As much as this is kind of like a failed look in top and a mid lane play which doesn't really work out, just the fact that they had the space to do that without losing anything is good setup from Astralis.
JeongHoon and Xerxe don't seem to be done though. It'll be a 2v3 in the river. Smite fight comes through, but here's a Taliyah. Weaver's Wall to try and turn this one around. Making this now a 4v3 over the wall. Goes Mersa trying to get into Dajor. Shockwave used. Dajor got nowhere to go. And the clockwork winds down.
So Astralis actually biting off a little bit more than they can shoot at that point. As much as they had the first move towards top lane and mid lane because JeongHoon was separated from that lane, how much can they really continue here?
They're keeping to look forward, but they've missed out with the stun, so they're going to try and play this one out anyway. And just some trades back. Attempt there from Astralis to make something happen after the play went awry for them, but they're only going to control ward and a little bit of a retreat.
So to kind of rein us back in, because while I was very impressed with Astralis and how they, got this kill bot side, and it was like, wow, cool, this Sivir is going to really struggle at this point. Yes, the Sivir is still very far behind in gold. We're going to keep tracking that. Misfits have actually, of recent weeks as well, been having some good moments, and this one is an overestimation of how much damage Astralis have and underestimating how quickly a Taliyah can join the fray. Level 6, of course, has the Weaver's Wall and just gets to be here. Add that utility. Dajor is completely cut off at the pass, and Vetheo, so much to say about this player who had a wonderful spring LEC, has been starting to regain some of that form, and getting involved again is important for this Misfits team. We're actually fairly even after all things are said and done, though we'll have to see again what happens to the spot lane matchup. Do you want to keep putting a finger towards that? Well, the gold is fairly even. Worried about this 2v2.
Exactly, and this is really to highlight the fact that both these teams have had great turnarounds over recent weeks. It's irrelevant. Out of nowhere, it's a solo kill. Who needs graphics?
Well, okay, put up the Misfit graphics again.
There you go. Reminded people.
Yeah, well, okay, I was half joking about that. I was like, when you put it up, like, wow, it's like you've summoned the solo kill. I mean, we do know that Sejuani has been a good matchup into that Gnar, but this is what happens when you have so much base percentage health damage. That Permafrost actually stops the Gnar dash midway through, and then, of course, means that can't get away from the Sejuani following up that ultimate. Gets 2 procs of that damage, and then, we said that it was potentially counterable, potentially a champion which is harder to survive in lane nowadays. We've now seen Xerxe die, wants to a gank, but that solo kill gives Irrelevant a lot more confidence in this matchup.
Problem is, though, Kobbe still managed to get 3 plates for himself, nearly a 4th, and while Zanzaro is trading away with some Krugs here, that's not quite the same as getting this Draven to a point of power. While he's not cashed in quite yet, he's still stacking up that passive, still ready to cash in at a moment's notice alongside JeongHoon. See what Misfits can do to continue their winning ways if they can, right?
Well, one thing which can potentially lead to that is, of course, something like a lane swap. Again, just going to bring up this minimap because we see that Irrelevant has been pushing in towards bot side, using the shove that way. I was actually wondering if we were actually going to see, because this is something that we saw a little bit in the ERLs. One of the big Draven games I remember back then was when a lane swap was initiated after some weird 2v2s, because if you go into a lane swap and actually you kind of give up on one side of the map just to get a shutdown on the other, it works out so well for you. Of course, with the amount of CS and the amount of access that Kobbe has been catching, I was a little bit worried that Misfits maybe were opening something up for Astralis, but they couldn't capitalize on at that point. We're back to lane shenanigans. The Sivir and the Draven still on opposite side of the maps.
Keep an eye, of course, on Zanzara's inventory as well. Did pick up that Herald, as we kind of noticed earlier, and it's time to see whether they can maybe unlock the Sivir, get some gold into her, as she's been somewhat under pressure, really, in this early game. You can see it, where Kobbe's got that fairly significant gold lead from the CS, and even if the kill's gone over to Sivir.
This Herald play is going to be really crazy, because I actually, most of the time, I hate cross-mapping against the Herald, because you're like, okay, the Herald's always going to take a tower, always going to be guaranteed gold, but if you trade that for a kill onto a Draven on the other side of the map, things get very, very different. We can see that Irrelevant is stuck in this matchup versus the Draven right now. Xerxe responding bot side, so it is actually going to be a bit of a split map, but Astralis not looking to contest the Herald.
Yeah, Vetheo roams down as well and does have the Weaver's Wall available, so this would be very risky to truly defend this. Looks like Neon will get every blade here as Berlin. Very pleased to see Shelly get a charge on in.
Got some demolitionists in the house. Crying out for that one. But okay, so Misfits, they don't end up getting cross-mapped for this one. That was the one worry I had with this Draven on the table. Very unique champion in the way that he kind of affects macro just with the threat of that extra gold coming in for a single kill. But Astralis not really in position to do much with it. And we said we were going to keep an eye on what was going to happen between these two AD carries with a the 2v2 advantage coming on, and suddenly Neon now has that kill, which was picked up in that bot side skirmish, was now actually got a lot of plates, Star not falling further behind in farm, and is ahead in gold. Until we get a shutdown coming in for Kobbe, as you were saying, and we get that cash in, actually, Astralis, for all the hard work they put towards bot side and what we praised them for, it's not actually amounted to a game-breaking advantage or anything.
Not right now. This game, as we said, is pretty even. We saw, having kind of switched between those graphics between the various moments of action, that both teams really improved last week in their early game, but against each other right now, it is pretty even. We've got ourselves a Sivir and a Draven who are ready to play out as the crowd is preparing a little bit of a Queen melody to go along here.
I know we have like Kings, Legends, and Dynasties. Didn't know we had
Queens as well.
Have the full monarchy in here.
Who's Freddie Mercury?
Definitely not me.
Maybe we'll avoid singing on broadcast for now. We will Mountain Drake you.
That is awful.
I know, I'm sorry.
That is so bad. Never do that again. We have now at this point, though, started to slow things down, and we are waiting for that explosive fight again. We know that both of these teams on the Rift really like to wait up until those grouped up fights, those skirmishes. That's where they've really started to succeed, particularly Astralis. They've gone towards those team fights more often than not. Misfits occasionally go towards a bit more skirmishy stuff, but they are no strangers to the 5v5 as
Mersa.
well.
Ooh, very risky place to be as the Leona is still tanking up, but he's about to find himself the end of a Phantom undertow. Not taking that low and actually trying to turn this one around, and Xerxe having to retreat, gets just out of range of the Glacial Prison. Attempted pick by Astralis, swiftly responded for.
Oh, it's a good flash.
That's going to be a massive flash. Dajor having to flash back out now himself. The phase rush is going to be stopped out with a massive shockwave. But he's kicked away by Keeper's Verdict.
And that was kind of what it's... Oh, wait, the fight keeps going.
It's just all over the map right now. Both these teams scrambling to find themselves any advantages, but nothing comes of it quite yet.
The reason I wasn't really hyped up for that initial Leona pick was Mersa still has flash. Leona is a very tanky champion. Taking the aftershock, it's not going to be a glacial. So that Leona is quite hard to take down. So Astralis biting off quite a lot on that play and not being able to finish off the plate. Now, we talked about these dragons. Ocean Dragon is alive. Astralis has them. Reminder, individual dragons have more value. They have 50% increase on what they gave on this last patch. So if you're getting these individual ones, which Astralis, of course, got that Infernal early on, now about to get themselves an Ocean as well, unless a contest comes through, this means more than it would have done on previous patches. This is why we're alluding to 2v2s being important, early bot lane wave control being important. Have to see whether these now latent stats passively affecting Astralis will come into play.
It appears that that little bit of Queen earlier on has in fact summoned the Mountain Rift, so well done, people.
No, don't enable him.
Why are you so disappointed in me?
Because I have to deal with this at home all the time. These people don't understand. That doesn't understand.
Just throw me under the bus live on air, why don't you? They're cheering this now as well. Dear me.
Right, so back into these resets. And again, now we're starting to look around what's going to happen with these next series of picks. What is going to happen with the next time that Mersa steps up into JeongHoon looking around the edges, someone with a bit of CC, because last time, basically all of those flashes were available. We're starting to cut through some of those summoners. So in the next couple of minutes, see what that vision leads towards, whether it can lead to something like this.
Zanzaro managed to get a knock on to JeongHoon, but he's gone invisible with the Ghost Water Dive, so gets out, but loses a lot of his HP for it.
But you know irrelevant. You see that timer ticking down?
I do.
That was a couple of seconds off of potentially very dangerous situation for Astralis. It is around that second. Herald Ultimate's now available for pretty much everyone on the board. You know we're talking about those team fights. Round one.
It's brewing here. Can they make it happen? Chachi on the side, nearly at Mega Nut, but will be shoved forwards and into the wall afterwards with a heroic charge. He's knocked up and knocked down. Chachi out, Glacial Prison afterwards, and Xerxe now has to back out best he can. Member down. Misfits managed to have the Herald reset on them, but should be able to secure this, and the Xerxe felt the need to go in, will instead retreat to his Krugs, and Misfits right now feel in command with a few thousand gold to their name.
And I know that Mini Gnar is a little more squishy than they used to be, but I have to feel... Oh, gosh.
The Pyke is about to find his end, or find himself on the end of a Zenith Blade, but actually Kobbe forced a flash out of Mersa, but now Kobbe out of mana. The Blood Rush isn't going to matter. Zanzara knocks him down, and the stacks are down for the count.
And Astralis, it feels like they're miscalculating. do agree that flanking a Taliyah around that Herald is probably the angle you're looking for, right? But Vizicsacsi doesn't have a Mega Gnar bar, doesn't use the flash, and just gets absolutely mauled by Vetheo and Zanzara at the start of it. Followed into a bit of a oopsie from JeongHoon and Kobbe, stuck alone in that mid lane, not really understanding where Misfits members are moving. And Astralis, a couple of picks in a row, lose their heads for a little bit, lose some kills, and while they've been stacking up those dragons, and they'll certainly help, they're now quite far behind in gold on several important roles.
I've done that again. I've got to get used to the fact that replays do in fact occasionally come up here. We'll look into this one as Misfits came out heavily on top.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, this is actually looking towards that Mega Gnar, but like, you have to flash there. You cannot afford to get caught, and Zanzara finished off the kill, which Vetheo steps up, and once the one flank is started, we were talking a little bit in Champions Select about how safe the Sivir is. If you don't have that flank, if Vizicsacsi doesn't survive that initial part of that fight, Misfits don't need to worry about that Sivir getting shut down. It means that Astralis have to back off, and this is where the next big miscalculation comes into. Pyke is all well and good when he's on the roam. When he takes a straight-up fight against the Leona, which can lock him in place, though, he has to back off very quickly, and because he's backing off, Draven suffers for it too.
And in they come with the second Herald, ready to try and make sure this happens. They're going to keep charging forward. Picks. Irrelevant forcing a flash away from JeongHoon potentially. He's got nowhere to go though and just gets knocked straight down. No chance to use the summoner until a little too late. Second charge comes through. Weaver's Wall afterwards to prevent any easy defense. Man down, 2 towers down, and Misfits on a roll here.
And Zanzara is having a wonderful game on this Poppy. You know, talk about some of the missteps from Astralis, but you know who's forcing him to do that? It's this Poppy pick, it's the first pick, and it's Zanzara. The taxman cometh, and he's holding Astralis to account both financially and their immediate well-being as well.
Absolutely trying to make this one happen. And there we have the Santander total goal. This time actually functional and not during a replay. As some interesting moments here as I feel that might be slightly bugged. I have no idea what's going on, but you have to imagine there's gold leads.
We have removed Astralis from the graph, but they are behind in gold.
Has Xerxe managed to get a hold of this and has set up like an impromptu like pop quiz? Like on air?
Ask me about ability clues. I can win that one. I can win that one.
If a Taliyah gets this amount of kills early on into the game, how much gold should be over her opponent?
No, that's not... Don't ask him to do a mass potion of that. That would be very, very bad. Thing is... Well, Xerxe having to force back towards his base, and this Gnar has been just punished time after time. It's going to potentially happen again.
They're going to step forward. Zanzara on Poppy for the 3rd time in a row since he's joined the team, finding a lot of success here. On paper, this time, not just on audio, getting some huge leads for himself and the team.
I believe one of the things he said in that was, oh, imagine batting the Trundle and not first picking the Poppy. Now, of course, Misfits chose blue side today, and they first picked that Poppy. Again, you can see how much they value it and how much it means to a player of Zanzara's caliber on his favored champions. Astralis are at least able to get themselves a bit of a cross map. Of course, objective bounties not going to be enabled because they have themselves a couple of dragons. That kind of adds into that equation. They're not getting extra gold funneled into their pockets. But even with that cross map, it's not really affecting the way that Astralis want to play the map because this is a dragon going down. So it's not like Astralis can capitalize on the early dragons they got. They also don't have that much vision. They're spotted on all of their entries. What can Xerxe do here?
He's got to keep his verdict. Misses, though, and now actually Misfits a little bit pinned in place. Neon throws down. The spell shoveled into the wall is stunned. Zanzara, can they trade this one out? There's not enough damage quite yet, and none of the rest of Misfits are here and looking to fight. Kobbe, stunned, has to cleanse Flash, and he's in trouble stalling the side of Vizicsacsi. Taken out by a ricochet, and it's going to be a bounce house that Neon is winning. A shutdown, though, on Zanzara is something, but can they sit down? The Sivir will get it, and Astralis still playing this one up best they can. Irrelevant, and Vetheo are still going to try and punish, though they are not done here. They refuse to lose, and Xerxe will be stopwatched away from killing off the Taliyah. Double to the mid laner of Misfits.
And you know what? As soon as we saw that approach the dragon, I was getting a little bit worried. I thought that Misfits, even with their vision, had allowed Astralis into a very dangerous area, but the items are through, and they managed to protect that Sivir. Neon goes down in the fight, but not before doing so much damage with those ricochets going back and forth, and Misfits retain control of this game. They pick themselves up their first dragon, which is that mountain. Of course, that'll go a long way to, again, giving them extra combat stats to fight off with. And again, looking back at this replay, this is one of the worst case scenarios you could see from Misfits at this point, where the Sivir is in a dangerous position, but they still manage to survive. Astralis don't manage to shut down that Sivir early on, and at this point, you just don't have the extra ability to close that gap. You've used a lot of your big cooldowns at that point, and it's just not cleanly executed after Astralis missed the initial blow.
Absolutely, and Neo went from 1-0, 1-2-3, 1 and 4. Yes, he dies, but he gets himself nice and involved, and Vetheo is very happy to clean up the remains.
Now, I do really think Astralis found one of the better scenarios they could there. They were in a very difficult spot, they'd lost a lot of their vision control, and they still found a way potentially to shut down that Sivir. But it's just once you fail that initial engage, and that's partly credit to Neon and Zanza are both playing disengage very, very well there, it's just very hard to continue the fight, and you're already in at that point. The Sivir allows them to run back down. Misfits, as we said, run away with that fight. Back out onto the map, resets involved, extra items involved, and Astralis waiting to see where the hammer blow falls next and where they have to respond to.
Try their absolute best. JeongHoon on this Pyke, a player we've had so much praise for, this rookie coming in, causing a bit of chaos really here in the LEC. His Pyke was pretty phenomenal the last time he pulled out, but this time around it's just not really landed. The Draven and the Pyke haven't snowballed, haven't got those cash-ins, and now Misfits in a very commanding position. They stop the soul point coming through, and honestly, with the Sivir now at 2 items, nearly 3, you get very worried.
Let's see with this brief pocket of vision, Astralis might be able to find a pick.
Then we're going to try and get this one down. There's surely a shutdown coming through, dead from below. JeongHoon cashes in.
Okay, all right, that's important. It's extra gold on the table. Of course, reminder, this game is so important for both of these teams. Moments like that, lapses in concentration can mean so much, but Misfits on the hunt with the Sivir.
They will not let that kill go unpunished. Astralis in a 4v3 must fight somehow, some way, teleporting in, trying to survive, but already Dajor taken so low. Falls down to a final ricochet. Chachi is here, but JeongHoon will burn down to irrelevant. Again, that name feels more and more like a complete joke as Chachi is swooned away with the wall. May have a hop, may have a hope, but not enough quite yet. Gnar is just not enough. He falls down. Vetheo on a killing spree, and Misfits punish the temerity of Astralis for trying to take down one of their members.
With a hop, a skip, and a crunch. Find that now right back towards that death chamber. Got the Baron started up finally at this point. Misfits using that Sivir ult to great impact to catch Astralis out after they'd find their own pick. Xerxe around. Doesn't have a great way into the pit right now.
He must try to find something. He's got no blast cone, no ultimate, no flash. He's just going to stand here, unfortunately, and watch as the Baron falls down. Over the wall goes irrelevant. This Sejuani has done nothing but go forwards. A rampaging Freljordian warrior doing so much more. They get themselves the Baron. They'll get themselves out, and Misfits now at a staggering 6,000 gold lead early on into this game.
And that's the Baron as well. They get themselves a clean reset. Not going to lose themselves anything for the reset too. This started off as a pretty good play from Astralis. Again, we're talking about the pressure in this game and how much it means to both of them. And Astralis find the pick onto the jungler. Great, awesome. Maybe they can make a play around an objective. But they just overstay a little bit, and credit to Misfits are really seeing that time in window, realizing, actually, we do have the Sivir ult. We can start walking over this, have the other global of the Taliyah and take a ride through the wall as...
I really enjoy those facial expressions. They're great.
I'm sure Astralis too when they see that smiling face come right over the wall.
You kind of feel the need to go, wee! Yes, yeah, it's just riding along that wall, and that's, yeah, dead Gnar, and very early Baron there, not quite on spawn, but only a couple minutes afterwards.
You've got to be careful with those sound effects. The crowd's learning.
They are. That's slightly terrifying, really.
They're beginning to believe.
As stated, they are learning.
I'm so glad we're providing peak entertainment for your all.
Thank you, thank you.
Can we get like an LEC soundboard? Can we do that?
Like crowd soundboard. I would definitely buy that.
Yeah, Deborah, if we get back on that, that'd be great. Talk to us about it in the break.
Well, the siege continues right now, and they're going to see whether Vetheo, having gone golden here, will be just about fine. Teleport coming through to get back from the side lane from Dajor. Knocked back away is the Nymaera. You can hear what the crowd wants.
Yeah, the crowd
see whether they'll allow it in. It seems like Irrelevant feels the need. Dajor has to whack away. On comes the Whirling Death, but still Kobbe yet to cash in. Zanza and murders out the Pyke. Finally catches in, does Kobbe. But I think it might be a little too late into this game. It's a 1-for-1 right now, but the inhibitor turret falls regardless.
Oh, they finally get a kill onto the Draven, but it's after so many deaths, and it's just not easy pickings for Astralis. They've been left trying to pick up the pieces of so much in this game. Couple of early look-ins, and it's just not really stabilized from Astralis outside of that point. As soon as Sivir got back on the board after some crafty play from Misfits getting the Sivir back into it, Astralis have struggled to adapt to this mid-game.
Soul Point is on the board here for Astralis, and looks like they're going to try and get to this before Misfits can reset and get out here, but they'll know it's happening because of that control ward just north on your screen. Neon and Mersa coming over. So I wonder whether Misfits are in position to punish nice and heavily. There's the teleport.
Okay, they don't have the Sejuani ult just yet. That's one of the primary engage tools down, nor do they have the solar flare. Question is, do they actually care?
Absolutely
no.
not.
Threat of those wallets, threat of just walking menacingly. Astralis enough to force them off. Astralis potentially could have found themselves a timing window, but it does feel like, as in most of this game, Misfits, even with the smallest windows, have managed to get the most out of these plays.
Let's have a look at this replay once again. It's a 1-for-1, but the tower falls, and still in the end, a Misfits win.
And that's actually really well played by Irrelevant. You can see where Dajor was positioning the ball. You can see that he's looking for that miracle shockwave. Irrelevant punishes him for walking up into that command attack distance and gets a very important initial pick. There is that turnaround, but I do really want to praise Irrelevant for that pinpoint Sejuani ultimate. Just playing the mind game against Dajor, knowing that the Orianna was looking for the big ultimate.
Reminder is, again, the standings are incredibly tight right now, and both these teams tied for 5th to 7th, or rather, sorry, 4th for Misfits with XL and G2, but Astralis just behind them here, 1 win behind. Misfits about to give themselves some space between themselves and their nearest opponents just out of playoffs.
And again, there are so many of these teams which are looking at these teams just below them with a bit of sweat on the brow. Nothing to do with the heat in Berlin right now. It is all about the pressure. It's all about the stakes. And again, while this game hasn't been the most explosive team fight affair, there has been a little bit of posturing between the two teams, a little bit of difficulty in committing to them. Again, you can see both these teams are still looking nonetheless.
Here comes the Keeper's Verdict being spun around again, looking to see whether they can keep people away from the tower, and they do so just fine. Now the Inhibitor is the one under siege. None of them have fallen quite yet, but I don't know whether Astralis have what it takes to prevent that from happening. Misfits now just rode over towards the mid lane, and JeongHoon, yes, he's trying to pull the wave away, but that's about all he can do right now.
Well, he's pulled them a couple of seconds to get back into position. It means that Misfits can't just walk from one plane to combo.
Flash cleanse down, the Draven down to a 3rd. JeongHoon just being a menace. Nuisance on the side.
He's so fast, you know. He's got himself a flash still too, so he can get away from that steadfast presence. And as much as the crowd would like it, we are not fighting just yet. We are a very civilized community here at the LEC. We are civil.
I'm with you, crowd. You boo that. That's fine. I want some more action. Thank you. Hey!
No, no fighting. Hammer away.
And now the fight begins. The crowd will get what they asked for, and they asked for blood. Irrelevant gets a kill onto Dajor. JeongHoon still hammering or haunting behind the scenes here, but just nothing to be done. Kobbe gets a bit of a trade onto Zanzra, but Inhibitor falls regardless. 1 remains in the top side, but it's unshielded by a tower, so maybe some damage here is shoved back as Irrelevant, but he's just so tanky. The turnaround comes straight on through. That is a dead Chachi. Zanzra will follow up on the Solar Flare, and Xerxe has to Heartbreaker away. Kobbe, whirling death, just not enough, and JeongHoon, it just feels like there's nothing you can do right now on the Pyke.
And as soon as Misfits get this 5-man unit together, especially with the gold lead, it's so difficult for Astralis to find their target, find them. Oh, good flash away from JeongHoon, but you can see Astralis really struggling to land the hits.
It's a last dance, a last attempt to hold on to the base. They just can't quite make it work. Misfits looking to secure themselves that additional game win, looking to make sure the playoffs is theirs and not taken from their hands. A critical win against their nearest competitors will be theirs. Misfits move to 8 and 6.
Nexus finally falls. It took a bit of effort, but Misfits, I really admire their discipline in this game. There was that one slight slip with the pick onto Zanzra as they were looking around that Baron, which of course Astralis punished them for, but they were very quick to pick up the ball after that point. And Misfits, what a revival this team has had from the start of summer, where it felt like they'd lost their mojo a little. This team has become quickly now another one of these playoffs representatives that we're likely to see. And this win puts them very firmly on that path.
The last hurrah from Misfits continues to be really exciting. And a reminder here, people, key player of the game on LEC at Twitter, of course, looking like we might have some options here to go through. It'll be Irrelevant and a couple other people I can't see
when it scrolls back up,
there we go. There you go. Irrelevant, Vetheo, Neon, go throw those votes in. You can hear what the crowd wants to say. What would you rather say?
Ooh. You know, the thing is, I would actually say none of the above, but I think Zanzra had a great game.
Oh, no! It's not available, though.
I'm going to be the dissident. But, you know, I think in this game, you look at Misfits, and it really was an understanding of these rotations.
Allez, LeBlanc.
There you go. Great to see some of these fans of these players and these teams in the audience. You show that love to those players. It means so much to them. And of course, go vote for those players and show that extra bit of love on Twitter and see what happens with that. We'll check in with that in a bit.
Of course we will. And, you know, still just waiting here for interviews to be set up. So we've got a little bit of time to chat through this one. And honestly, in some ways, we're wondering whether this game might be a little closer, but Zanzara gets things rolling early, and the discipline, as you said, to stop the Pyke or the Draven getting cash-ins meant actually they never got that huge gold lead, that huge ability to just explode that goal from nowhere.
Yeah, and, you know, the first couple of minutes, you know, I think we gave, you know, a very warranted praise to Astralis, saying, actually, you know, it's a very obvious draft that they want to put resources bot lane, and they put resources bot lane well. They got, you know, that 30 CS lead, they got a CS lead, which ended up being very, very dangerous, but it never evolved beyond that because Misfits were very good at making sure their bot lane could stay in the game. I do genuinely feel this was a little bit closer than the scoreline suggests.
Either way, the scoreline still reads an additional win to Misfits. After the break, we'll have an interview with Neon, so we'll see you after that.
Even the biggest champ needs a break.
Did anybody see Viego skip